ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Today we will discuss a very important subject, which is the interstate coordination between the police forces in India. And to discuss this subject with me, I have Mr. Sipal Singh, who is a very distinguished senior police officer and who has held several appointments in the government of India in very senior police positions. He is also the architect of the Rapid Action Force and the Central Police Academy at Mount Abu in Rajasthan. He's also been decorated with several police recognitions like the President Police Medal for Distinguished Service and the Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service, the Police Special Duty Medal with Bar and a Sena Medal, and a number of commendations and rewards. I start by asking Mr. Sipal Singh as to what exactly are the concerns of the police in India today.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Pawan. The concerns are that the very fact that the police is a state subject and the state forces at times do not see eye to eye and they have no harmony between their functioning. So there is a lack of interstate coordination when it comes to the criminals who are moving from one state to another. The second part is that police being a state subject, there are a lot of problems for the central police organizations to be deployed in the state. And third is that even the central investigation agencies do not have authority unless they are permitted by the state government to investigate their cases. And the fourth and the last is that a lot of reforms are needed in the functioning of the police, which are pending since long. And unless these reforms are carried out, the police functioning will not get streamlined.
Just before we enter into the main question of the day, if you could briefly explain, sir, as to what exactly are the basic police functions of the police force in India?
The police primarily is responsible for maintenance of public order, prevention and detection of crime, which involves protecting life and property, which involves preserving general law and order, which involves preventing the commission of new offenses and investigation of the offenses, and then bringing the offenders to justice. Any duty or responsibility of the police arising from the statute of law is basically the responsibility and functions of the police today.
We generally, just for the common man, you have the state police force, and then you have a armed police force within the state. What exactly is the relation between the two?
You see, as far as the state is concerned, normally the state has two basic wings of police. One is the civil police, and the second is the armed police. The civil police is responsible for day-to-day law and order and crime control, while the armed police should normally be kept in the reserve in the lines till additional support is required in certain situations of riots and law and order. In this regard, I like to submit that invariably, as of date, the armed police is absolutely no reserve is there, because the police force is inadequate in every state to meet the law and order duty, and therefore the so-called armed wing of the police in a state is hardly available as a reserve. It is being used by the police, or the civil police as you may call it, or the other wing of the police for law and order duties and control of crime, riots, etc.
Is it the correct usage of the reserve police?
Yes, exactly. there's not much of difference. When a police constable is recruited, now it is a question of at that time giving it a duty of the armed police, but basically they are trained in the same manner in any organization, but in particular state. But armed police people have a little more role, so therefore they are trained in the handling an arm better, and they are considered to be a little better built, and therefore we post them as the armed police constable in the reserves. But as I have submitted to you, there's hardly any reserve nowadays. All the reserve is being used as a police. But it's not question of it, because in the state itself, mingling of the armed police and civil police does not matter much. Have known the duties, have been taught to perform the duties, have learned the duties to be performed by the police in the state.
The general opinion of the public is it is the civil police, the police that functions through the SHO or the thanas, that is the one that is which maintains the law and order, while it is not the central armed police is really having no role within the public domain. Is that a true perception?
No, I like to submit what I refer to, or what your question was, regarding the armed police wing in the state. I'm not asking central police. I am saying the police wings in the state are two wings. One is the armed police wing of the state police. One is the state civil police. Actually, as I told you, there's not much of difference. They can perform vice versa duty. Now, the next question is the armed police forces of the center.
No,
police...
that was not the question that I asked. I asked there are two wings within the state. One is the civil side and one is the armed police side. Whereas the general public interfaces with the police that manages the police stations in the state. And the armed police is generally not involved with the management of the police stations. And the perception of the general public is that the police which is managing the police stations is the more powerful part of the police service.
I think there's a misconception, because the armed police, so-called armed police of the state, is available at the SHO also as required, and also is available in the district police line to be put into duty like the civil police. But because the SHO is the functionary who comes in contact with day-to-day functioning of the law and order, day-to-day maintenance of law and order, dealing with the civilian population, dealing with other population, dealing and also registering the case and also processing the prosecution. Therefore, basically everyone thinks, and it is so, that it is the thana and the police involved in the thana which is more important. No doubt, I am submitted because of the, but there is no question of they are not being able to perform the duty. I agree with you that basically a thana police, because the beat constable and everyone should be from the thana police. Thana police knows its periphery, should know. If they don't know, that is misfortune, but they should know in the periphery who are the people staying, what are the type of criminals there, whether there are some mischief elements. This is all known to the police functionaries in and around the thana. That is why the SHO is considered the fulcrum of all duties. In fact, you'll be surprised to know that as far as the law is concerned, the IPC, all the functions of the senior police officers, I mean above SHO, that is of the DSP or the SP or SSP, are basically derived from the SHO, because it says the function which are vested in the Thana SHO shall stay invested in the senior police officer, which means the basic function in the law revolve around only the SHO as per Criminal Procedure Code and IPC. That is why he is considered much more important compared to the armed police of the state.
The police comes under a Police Act which was formed in 1861, which is almost 160 years from today. Do you think that it needs to be revised, or we need to make it more contemporary to times? Because
Yes.
when it was designed by the British for their purpose. And 75 years of our independence, we haven't changed the Police Act. What is the reason why we haven't changed it so far?
I tend to agree with you. This Police Act of 1861 was actually, as you know, legislators of British after the mutiny of 1857 or the first war of independence of 1857. The British, naturally at that time, wanted to establish a police force that would suit the purpose of crushing or subsuming any dissent or any movement for the self-government. That was the aim at which this, and there is definitely need of amendment of Police Act 1865. Lot of discussions have taken place. In the last few years, new act, the amended act, has been drafted. It is yet to be cleared by the legislature to become, although everywhere a section has been gone into it, and the new Police Act has been formulated, drafted by a committee, but it is yet to come into operation.
That's sad because the Police Act of 1861 was designed by the British, and now even in free India, we've been 75 years into our own independence, and yet we feel that the police should crush the protests or the legitimate voice of the people.
This is because we go into those very sections. The question is the political power, I like to submit. It's not that the police does not have to function exactly to crush. They have to maintain law and order, and proper equilibrium is to be established, and proper authority of law has to be established. Not by means of crushing it, but there's no doubt about it. There is section of law. For example, lot of debate has gone around against the powers of the police, where they say that dissent or so-called which dissent is equal to what they say is against the sovereignty of the state. Now, who will determine whether the dissent is against the sovereignty of the state? In the times of British time, it was all right in 1865. They said any dissent will be considered against the sovereignty of state. Today, in the democratic functioning, dissent is a part of the democratic functioning. So how far this dissent goes to destabilize the government and it impinges on the sovereignty of state is to be decided by the police functioning. Now here, the discretionary power given to the police is the main, I would say, guilt, inbuilt guilt in that, because discretionary powers have been given the police act and as well as the IPC, where the SHO has to determine, in normal all other cases, lot of discretions are vested in the Thanedar, and therefore at times these discretions are exercised to the detriment of the public, and therefore public feels that this police is not meant as an ameliorative police, as a police which should help the people, a police which should be for the welfare of people. Or normally the image goes that the police of the country is meant to crush the dissent. It is meant to some other control law and order with an iron fist. So that is a misfortune, and therefore the reformation of the police, the amendment of the police act, and the reforms which have been recommended from time to time in the police commission have to be instituted or given. Recommended so many things, but no state government is giving credence to it. They're lying and they're catching dust. Those amendments recommended by the police commission.
So now we have a situation where the police in one state functions under the dictum of the politicians in power or the political party in power, and generally the instructions given to the police may be different to the instructions that are given to the police of a neighboring state, and there may be a political difference between the two states. How is a difference like this generally resolved?
Now, that is the main issue of the interview today, USA. How? Because the interstate coordination is lacking. Because I'll just refer without any bias to certain things which happened in the recent past. For example, a leader of a political party, Mr. Bagga, was arrested a few months back by the Punjab police in Delhi on the basis of a FIR registered against him in Punjab at Mohali. Now, the Punjab police went there and arrested Bagga, and they were bringing back Bagga as an alleged accused to the police station. Delhi police said that the protocol of informing the Delhi police has not been done had been complied by the Punjab police. So they registered a counter case against the Punjab police for abduction and kidnapping one of the citizens of place where Delhi police had acted. So they informed the Haryana police. When he was being brought, when he reached in the Haryana jurisdiction, the Haryana police was there and they intercepted the police party of Punjab with Bagga and forcibly took away Bagga and handed him over to the Delhi police where they wanted to be taken back. Now imagine, it could have resulted in a very ugly situation had any temperamental police officer or a police constable having arms with him from the Punjab police or from the Haryana police had acted in a little indiscreet manner or had fired, no, we'll not give it. You can see the consequences. So therefore, I beg to agree with you that this sort of voices which are being raised, the dissent which is being created, the disharmony which is being created between state to state is basically a manifestation of the political orders. It is not directly according to us, all the police officers. There should have been coordination. Punjab police, if it is not informed, they should have informed. And even if supposing they have failed to inform, Delhi police could contact them and have a coordination. Yes, that's so. And in between, Haryana police came. Since Haryana police is under different political master, Delhi police under different political master, and Punjab at that time was under the same master, which is Delhi police. So therefore, the Delhi police is under central government, Haryana police under Haryana state, Punjab police under Aam Aadmi Party. So the political inclination somehow or the other prejudiced the functioning of the police forces. That is the disharmony. They are just face off here and there. And therefore, this disharmony can be very dangerous for the state forces, and it filters to the criminal elements, and it goes against the maintenance of law and order in any state.
Even in the state of Bombay, Maharashtra, we had a case where an actor, when he committed suicide, the police from Bihar wanted to come and investigate the case.
Right.
And there was a row over everything there. And an IPS officer from Bihar was not allowed to function and he was detained. What are your comments on a situation like this?
I am telling you, this sort of dissonance, this sort of disharmony, not seeing eye to eye with each other, or trying to get benefit for promotion or for some other personal benefit. If we are not acting in the right spirit of the statute. I have a feeling that this disharmony has to end forever. Not only in the interstate police organization, but even you'll be surprised to know that CBI, which is also a sort of investigation agency under the Delhi Police Act, it is considered to be a investigating and a police. Earlier, there was general consent from all the states that they could come and investigate any case in their state. The recent past, some of the states, like West Bengal or other states, have withdrawn this general consent from the CBI. They say if the CBI wants to come to our state, it has to take permission on case-to-case basis. Now, thereby, again, the jurisdiction of the state police cannot be impinged by the CBI by coming there and investigating. But if there is a coordination, if there is harmony, then the central police organization, CBI could inform and they could allow them to. But no, they say you come case-to-case basis, we'll examine case-to-case basis and then allow you to investigate a case in our state.
So which means that the IPS officers who are generally heading the various state polices also, that means there isn't enough coordination between the IPS cadre officers in the country. Is that a fair statement to make?
No, you are right. The question is the All India police force, All India cadre was created so that they are able to have joint training, they understand each other, they can talk to each other. But somehow or the other, with the passage of time, this senior leadership has also faulted and faulted miserably. As you have seen in Maharashtra also, recently a very senior police officer who was commissioner at one time has been arrested. So they have faulted because they are somehow or the other going by his master's voice, which is not a correct attitude. But again, because there is no reform, there were some reforms were ordered by the even Supreme Court went by one plea, one appeal, one I'm sorry, public interest litigation filed by Prakash Singh, and they gave some order that how the reform should be, how the state police functioning should not, senior police functioning should not be changed within 2 years of his appointment. But nobody agreed. So the state police functioning, an IPS officer, was posted there. After 5 months, he is turned out. After 6 months, he has brought his children to one place and started education. He goes to the state. For example, I'll quote Punjab. In the last few months, I have seen at least 4 DGs being transferred. One to other, to other, to other. Recently, the present DG has come out few days back. So it not only affects the coordination between the state, but also affects the morale of the police officer. And because they say their leader are being subjugated by the state police political functionaries. So my submission is that unless the reforms are brought in, the government of India projects something, or the state governments go about and decide between them to have some coordination, this ugly state of affair will continue. That is why our subject is that police coordination, as you are interviewing me, in interstate police coordination is a must.
Okay, now let me just get back a bit. There are several central armed police forces. There are state police armed forces and there are central armed police forces. Now there are various, there are about 7, 8 of them which function across the country. What is the role and how do they impinge upon the state police forces?
See, according to, as I submitted to the Constitution of India, police is a state subject. And the central armed police forces, maybe it is BSF, maybe it is SSB, maybe it's ITBP, maybe it is CRP. All these forces are central armed police forces which have no jurisdiction as far as the state is concerned. Now, deployment and pulling out of the central armed police forces in the state is becoming a big tug of war between the central and the state government. There was a standoff between the Ministry of Home Affairs and the West Bengal government on this issue some time back. Similar instances have occurred earlier also. It would be worthwhile for me to remind you that in 1976, according to 42nd Amendment of the Constitution, Article 257A was added, which empowered the central government to deploy armed forces of the center, that is CRP, BSF, etc., to deal with any serious law or situation in the state, irrespective of the fact whether state wants or not. However, within 1 year, the legislature, particularly the state legislation, they went against it. And next year, that is 44th Amendment, that is what started in 42nd was the amendment which gave power to the center. And 44th Amendment was given under 257, again A, and said it was considered, and since it hampers the sovereignty of the state government, hence without the permission of the state government, they should not be deployed. Now that is why I say that there is a lot of problems created. The recent part, for example, deployment of BSF by the central government in some state, extending the area of the deployment of their patrolling from existing 15 kilometer to 50 kilometer had evoked strong reaction from some of the state government. However, the Ministry of Home Affairs justified this deployment by taking plea that we are doing it not under the state jurisdiction, the center. It is the BSF Act of 1968, which provides to extend operation jurisdiction of the force when required. So therefore they applied. So I am trying to say that there is a lot of problems arising, a lot of requirements at times for sending central forces to the state is to be judged by the center or state is in doubt.
Now, you see, we have something called the Directorate of Enforcement. Then we have the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. We have then the Narcotics Control Bureau. We have the National Investigation Agency. We have the Enforcement Directorate. Now, whether we like it or not, they're all investigating various forms of crime within the country. Now, how do they interact with the public, and how do they interact with the state to bring because people today are feeling that they do not know what is the jurisdiction of each of these organizations, and especially the enforcement directorate is picking up cases which are being investigated by state police forces and taking them under a different ambit of doing a fishing and roving inquiry. How do you sort of feel about it?
That is a very, very pertinent question. Unfortunately, some or the other, they have not disseminated the knowledge as to how these forces have to act. Now, you have tried to ask me a question immediately after. PI is a police agency. It was a Daily Police Establishment Act, which was extended to the state by enactment. And therefore, they're also laid down that they take permission from the state and then start investigation. As far as Directorate of Enforcement is concerned, which you mentioned, important, I am take important. It is a organization which has been set up under the Ministry of Finance and Revenue. Ministry of Finance and Revenue enjoys jurisdiction all over the country. It's not Ministry of Finance and Revenue doesn't enjoy jurisdiction in the state. But the Directorate of Enforcement has to act within the limits for which this has been created. It has been created for offenses basically under POMLA or FEMA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act or Foreign Exchange Management Act. Now, Prevention of Money Laundering Act is when there is a black money exchange into white, laundered. That is from black to white. This is a laundering mark. Or it is in the Foreign Exchange Management Act. Unfortunately, the Directive of Enforcement sometimes goes beyond its jurisdiction, reasons best known to the political masters, and therefore is impinges on the rights of the private individual. But it does not impinge on the right of the state government. That's what I want to say. Under the law, under the Ministry of Revenue, under the Ministry of Finance, the Directorate of Enforcement has the jurisdiction on all these offenses, but offenses are limited only under POMLA, under FEMA. Then you say Revenue Intelligence. Again, it is under the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. The Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, again, it is about the income tax offenses and all. Narcotic Control Bureau is again about the narcotics and is confined to that. These all offenses which I have mentioned are overall jurisdiction, and they are not under the Ministry of Home Affairs, are not a state subject. They are all central subject, and therefore they are going to another state and conduct an investigation is all right. But they have to confine to those particular sections, those particular duties that is POMLA, FEMA, Revenue. But if they go into jurisdiction of law and order and impinge upon the state government right, then it's wrong. But on the other hand, National Investigation Agency, that is a central agency to combat terrorism, which has been enacted only a few years back. Here you are. Here there is a little overlapping because the terrorism can be there in a state. The terrorism can be recognized by the center under the NISSMAT, National Investigation Agency. Here little overlapping is there, but they have been given jurisdiction for only investigating the terrorist crime. And therefore, though they have got this jurisdiction, but before conducting any investigation state, they inform the state that we are coming here to conduct investigation in the case of a terrorist crime. So in this case, there can be little overlapping. But as far as the revenue agencies are concerned, narcotic bureau is concerned, they do not come within the jurisdiction of state subject. Therefore, the states cannot say that why are they conducting investigation here? Their jurisdiction is there. Of course, I have told you again and again, they should go by their own enactment. Director of Enforcement should go by Pamela. It should go by FAMLA. Narcotics should go up to the Narcotic Act. But if they go beyond the jurisdiction and start impinging on the jurisdiction of state government, then you are not going by the federal structure of the Constitution.
Tell me something. You have the Central Armed Police Forces, which are about 7 in number. What is the limitations of their deployment in the states?
What's the?
We have the Central
I
Armed.
know. I've got. What is the benefit?
What is the jurisdiction of the Central Armed Police Forces
I-
within the states, and what are the limitations under which they need to perform?
Sir, I have already submitted. There are, as you know, Central Reserve Police, Central Industrial Security Force, then SSB, then Assam Rifles, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, National Security Guard, and Border Security Force. There are some. All these are Central Armed Police Forces, and I've already said that they fall under the Ministry of Home Affairs. They cannot be sent to the state for maintaining law and order unless the state government desires it, that we need help. That is the lacuna. And I told you that one amendment was undertaken, and they said, no, without jurisdiction of the state government, they'll go and do work there. But immediately after a year, the second amendment was introduced. No, this is a state subject, and they should not be sent without the consent of the state. So far, they have the restriction. Their jurisdiction is restricted. But if they go according to the orders of the center and do something in the state, and the state forces react, you imagine, just like it was a challenge at one time in West Bengal, you imagine what consequences can arise. Similarly, deployment of the forces, central forces, the BSF, from 15 to 40 kilometers, has been exceeded only because of the act which provides the BSF Act. But they have been asked ultimately, if you catch hold of a person, investigation ultimately for that person has to be done by the SHO of concern of the state. So they have limited their jurisdiction only to searches and arrest and handing over to the state police. So their jurisdiction, as far as state is concerned, is very, very limited as per present constitution of India today.
Now, Mr. Sipal Singh, we've discussed that there are Central Armed Police Forces, there are Central Investigation Agencies, then there are state police forces, which are again divided into the civil part of the police and the armed part of the police. You have the enforcement agencies which come under the Ministry of Finance. How do we coordinate all of these? Because obviously there will be people who sort of are wanted by 2 or 3 agencies, and how do they coordinate amongst the states, between the northern states and the southern states, or the eastern states and the western states? There seems to be a lack of coordination amongst all these agencies to bring the culprits to justice. And I've heard you sort of suggest that we should have an organization like Interpol, like Indiapol. But how do you think they're going to function if there's so much of disconnect between all these organizations?
It's a very important question. What mechanism should be brought about for coordination purposes between the various police forces? First, we have got to know that this is the jurisdiction of the state. This is the jurisdiction of the Central Armed Police. This is the jurisdiction of the investigating agencies of the center. Having come to this and not amending the constitution, yet there has to be some coordination between the various police forces and also interstate. I think there's a great need to devise such a system. Perhaps, as somebody has said, that on the basis of Interpol. Interpol is again considered to be post box. You know, Interpol does not have any jurisdiction to issue a warrant. Interpol does not have any jurisdiction to arrest a person. Interpol has no jurisdiction to take any register any case. Interpol is only a sort of post office where one country requests the Interpol that we have got this man staying in such and such country, we want him. So Interpol has various methods, various notices. The red corner notice is the last, where they issue a red corner notice to the state, concerned state, that this man, who is a smuggler or who is a gangster or who is a criminal of particular state of the country, say India, is staying in so-and-so country, Canada. Could you please arrange to send him? No, it is not a question of direction. It is just a coordinating agency. If you go by the convention, all these governments, they got together. They said there has to, because if I write to Canada, I mean, the state government writes to, I mean, the country, India writes to Canada, they may not agree. But when we send to Interpol, Interpol give a red corner notice and send to, they may agree. But there is no jurisdiction. So there is a matter for consideration that we may have, at least in the initial stages, something like India Port, that there's some central agency with no jurisdiction. They can't have a state, they cannot impinge on a jurisdiction, but for coordination, maybe 70%, no question of any legal functioning, but at least for coordination, as you mentioned, all India, you said the cadre officers, this just start coordinating. It's a beginning to start coordination before we come to have all the amendments. Now, you're surprised to know that the National Police Commission have drawn attention to this sordid state of affairs, but without any significant impact on the powers who are dealing with the states and the center. The Supreme Court also issued a set of directions in 2006 probably, and has been trying to nudge the state to perform duties within the constitution and within the limits of the law, but with very little effect on the harmonious and smooth functioning of the police as a law enforcement agency of the state. I don't say that there is absolutely yes, if India Board is created, there is yes, but this may be a step forward. Till we can think of, not that it is just a thought, but you can think of, or the state or center can sit down and think of something so that this ugly situation is avoided.
A good starting point. At least we'd like to sow the seed of this discussion and leave it to the powers that be, whether they can take it forward or they cannot. Now, for example, the CBI represents for purposes of representing Interpol in India, it is the CBI which is the nominated agency.
Yeah.
Now, for India Pol, as you suggest, which is the existing organization that can actually don the mantle of taking on India Pol as an Interpol for within India?
That I'm trying to say, it is from country to country. In India, we have CBI, and India had designated CBI.
My question was that within India, which is
I'm saying I'm talking to you about Interpol. Interpol, somebody suggested from India that our CBI will coordinate from all, and they will, everyone, every state have problem, they write to CBI. Now the CBI is acting. CBI is a channel through which we send to the Interpol. That's all. CBI is not acting it's not a directional agency. Neither is an investigation agency in such cases. It was only creating a CBI. CBI is nothing. CBI is just coordinating and sending our requests of one state to the Interpol through CBI. Similarly, in other countries, there is some other organization. Those do not have CBI, they have some other organization. Because if somebody from Canada wants to request to India, it doesn't come from the CBI.
The point is seen. What I'm saying is, which is the agency within India that you would recommend that take on this mantle?
I'm saying it's an off-the-cuff suggestion. If they can create a national investigation agency for anti-terrorist crime, if they can create it in no time, something which they want to, they've amended it. You guys, is not an amendment required. Constitutional amendment is not required. Act remains the same. We have only to create a coordinating agency. For coordinating agency, what are you to have? One functionary and some directorate and some, and we have to inform all the state forces that all your problems from one state to state in the country shall be coordinated by this agency. Under the Home Ministry, it can be sent up, or under the, the Directorate of Personal Management, or under the Prime Minister's Secretariat. It is a question of setting up something so that these sort of ugly situations can be avoided to the extent possible. I've said that constitutional amendment, no. Supreme Court has given direction, they have no move. Although there are strictures from the court, no action. Still things are happening. Let us try to go a step forward, try to create some agency. It's only a off-the-cuff remarks of Interpol, you make an India board. You may get anything. You may call it country board. I mean, question is a police agency to be created somewhere in the center, which should be approachable by one state for action in other states. If they want, they inform them and they inform the other state. It has to be an objective coordinating agency only. Absolutely objective, no subjective agency. It has to be objective coordinating agency without impinging on the federal structure of the Constitution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sipal Singh. I think it's been an enlightening discussion on the police forces and the case to sort of set up another organization like Interpol within India. I thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate all that we have done today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.